Good morning. Welcome to another week of Kuleana and Community Talk Stories. Again, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Chancellor's Office, Kipuka, and Center for Global Exchange. We also want to invite you, like every other week, to go ahead and scan the QR code for evaluations. These evaluations help us to better program for next semester and will help us get funding to do this again next semester. Today we have a very fascinating talk with a very, very warm person. So Ian Kaleo Pilago, Kaleo, has had many jobs and many hands in the university system. For instance, he worked in student affairs here at university. And most recently, he is now the director or coordinator of outreach for the Center of Maunakea Stewardship. And so today he's going to talk about the importance of the preservation and sustainability efforts going on there up at the Mauna at this particular Bahipana. And so today's talk, he has talking about the education and outreach of the Maunakea Stewardship Center. So without further ado, Kaleo.
Thank you. Hello. Hey. So I'm going to start with kind of my genealogy, just kind of set the tone for our talk story today. So I don't really normally do a lot of public presentations and stuff, so please bear with me. O kia ko o kuauhau, o kahula ke kohopi o ka wahine, o Luther Macumber ke kane, noho pulawa a hanau o Edwin Dean Macumber he ke kane oia. O Edwin Dean Macumber ke kane, o Eliza Kalepua o kanani ka me o ka wahine, noho pulawa a hanau o Mary Kahula Macumber he kaika mahine oia. O Mary Kahula Macumber ka wahine, o Robert Kapika ke kane, noho pulawa a hanau o Edith Navahine Kapika he kaika mahine oia. O Edith Navahine Kapika ka wahine, o Angelino Pilago ke kane, noho pulawa a hanau o Angel Pilago he keiki kane oia. O Angel Pilago ke kane, o Patsy Juanita ka wahine, noho pulawa a hanau o Ian Kaleo o Kalani Pilago, o Vauno o Ian Kaleo o Kalani Pilago. Aloha mai kākou. So I like to share my genealogy, just kind of shows my connection to this wahi, to our moku, and I just kind of honor our ancestors too. Because like Mauna Kea is one interesting topic to discuss for plenty of different reasons. For myself, I better just take one step back first. I like to acknowledge, I'm actually a product of the Hawaii Community College. I got my associate's degree here way back before I think some of you were born. I was a tutor actually at the Learning Center, English tutor, for a bunch of years, and got my 2-year degree. That was a big accomplishment for me at the time. Then when I was in my undergraduate program, Carla was actually my supervisor at the writing center upstairs, yeah. I think Kilohana wasn't even around back then, so kind of dating myself, and eventually I got my graduate degree, and again, like Kobe mentioned, I work in student affairs, academic affairs at the community college. I started here at the university in 2007, and as I was sharing with Carla and Carolina earlier, when this position as this outreach, education and outreach coordinator, this position came up a few years ago, and I was kind of looking at the position and knowing that I would qualify in plenty ways for the position on one hand, but on the other hand, I kind of understood that there's a lot, it was a kind of a bigger Kuleana to take on. Just because this, I understood the position to be kind of a bridging between the communities in plenty different ways, our educational community, our Native Hawaiian community, and our, just our broader community in general. So I was really hesitant, and I waited to the last day at 4:15 p.m. on the deadline to submit, and I've been a part of CMS for about a year and a half now. So I need my notes because, as my coworkers know, I tend to digress a lot. If I don't stick to my notes, they're going to have to start flashing me 5 minutes left. So I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the Center for Maunakea Stewardship. And there's a lot of things connected to it, which I'll talk about as I'm going through. I kind of asked, at the end of this presentation, we'll have a lot of time for Q&A and for discussion. So if you have a super burning question or confused in any way, you can ask one question, but we'll have a lot of time for that at the end of the presentation. It just helps me to stay on track, okay? So like CMS been around since around 2020, I believe, yeah. And it kind of evolved from the Office of Maunakea Management post the protest that was happening, post some decisions by the state of Hawaii to change the directions of the Mauna. So when you're looking at sorry, I don't have my pointer not working. But when you're looking at the UH managed lands, yeah, it's all of these lands, the Maunakea Science Reserve here, and then as you can see, that kind of crooked rectangle in the middle, that's our astronomy precinct. That's where all the observatories and stuff are, and a lot of the science-based projects are. In addition to that, you see our NARS lands, yeah, this natural area reserve lands here. So that's just different jurisdictions on the Mauna. And when you're looking at the broader map, when you look at Mauna Kea, there's boundaries here, boundaries there. DLNR is here, NARS is here, UH is here, Hawaiian Homes is there. But it's kind of still one Mauna. But there's a lot of different jurisdictions and state entities at play, yeah, that manage certain areas and also have different responsibilities on the Mauna. The light brown areas here, sorry, I'm pressing a pointer, nothing pointing. The light brown areas there is the UH managed land. So that's the lands that the Center for Maunakea Stewardship manages, yeah. Okay. So before we kind of talk about what we do or what my program does in general, it's kind of good to talk about the different areas on our Mauna. So as you can see, I won't go into detail about each of the pu'u that's found on the Mauna, but each one, if the names of each pu'u has significance in itself. Like just with the first one, Poleahu, she's one of our, the Native Hawaiian, the Hawaiians believe she's one of our snow goddesses. She's one of the more prevalent and well-known akua on the Mauna. And of course you get Lilinoi and Waiau, and it'll take me too long to actually go through each one. But one of the important ones, in addition to Poleahu, is Pu'u Kukahou'ula. It's the whole complex. So when you guys go up there, watch the sunset on the summit, Kukahou'ula is that hill complex and stuff where the observatories are on the top. On the bottom, we have two Vaipana. It's Keonakako'i and Waiau, which I'll talk about later on. There's a couple slides ahead of here. So when you're looking at the Center for Maunakea Stewardship, yeah, we're kind of governed, the management of the mountain is governed by a couple different plans. And again, I won't go into too much detail, but the management plans is a Maunakea management plan and a comprehensive management plan, which kind of governs the activities on the mountain. Pretty much everything that happens on Mauna is governed by these two different plans. As far as the education and outreach program goes, there's 8 actions that I need to follow, and I needed to follow since the beginning. So I won't go through each one because it just in just paying attention to the time. But when I first came on board about a little over a year ago, there was an education and outreach plan. It was pretty good, but I think the plan was initially written, and if anybody wrote the plan or helped to write the plan, no offense, but it was written by people that actually wouldn't be managing or the program or wouldn't actually be doing projects on the Mauna, if that makes sense. So I looked at the plan, used some stuff that I thought we could apply to this program, and actually had to rewrite the plan. And again, sticking with the comprehensive management plan and all of these outreach actions, we kind of have managed to accomplish most of these thus far. And as we share with our admin and the university and all the people, all the stakeholders, the management, this education and outreach plan is pretty fluid. It always evolves, you know. Like even after a year, I had to rewrite certain sections and implement new programs. Also had to get rid of some that wasn't working. So it's one of those things where it constantly changes. So it's gonna always be in draft form. Two of the main wahi, see, I gotta stick to my notes. So when you're looking at the Maunakea,
That is from the Native Hawaiian perspective, yeah. Stuff. His mic is bugging, I'm sorry. So when you're looking at Maunakea from the Native Hawaiian perspective, Maunakea, the whole mountain is seen as an outlier here. Even though we have archaeological sites, we have burials, we have two specific areas, Keanakako'i and Waiau, which is really significant Waipana. Before I talk about those two areas, it's really good to look at the Mauna in its entirety as a sacred space. So whenever we going out as staff, I say we because I have coworkers here as well. We kind of carry ourselves with a higher level of respect. You know, almost, and depending on the areas we visit, we carry ourselves in somewhat ceremony. I'm not trying to sound weird or anything, but you gotta carry yourself when you're on the Mauna in a different way. And figure Keanakako'i. Anybody know Keanakako'i? Anybody know what it's like? So they started. So before any metal tools, the Hawaiian people used to go up to Keanakako'i. There's all work sites and caves and dwellings and stuff in this area, Keanakako'i. But the tools, these were the primary tools, pre-contact, pre-metal tools. And if you can see all these right here, this stuff, it's actually scattered in chips and stuff from all the work that they did on Keanakako'i. There's archaeological evidence. There's actually artifacts that they find in more cases and stuff where our ko'i from our Mauna was used as trade pre-contact. So I think it was used, and there's a rough estimate that throughout the course of 700 to 1,000 years, over 100,000 plus tools came out of Keanakako'i. All different sizes. This is the massive one, maybe for making canoes and stuff. And we had some that we saw is kind of smaller. So Keanakako'i is super important. But once metal tools were introduced, of course, they'll have to pick up the mountain and make stone tools. One of the other wahipana on our Mauna is Lake Waiau. Lake Waiau is real special for plenty of different reasons. From the scientific perspective, Waiau is one of the highest glacial lakes in the world. From the Native Hawaiian perspective, Waiau kind of represents the people, not just of our island, also pretty much the state, like all of the islands put together. Waiau was kind of recognized as his people. And one of the practices that Waiau, many generations that continue to today, is people would actually take the piko of rich kids, do their ceremony, do their genealogy, and actually place the people into Waiau. Kind of ensures, on one hand, long life. On the other, it connects that child or children to our Akua and to their ancestors and stuff. So that practice is still continuing today. And there's I'm going to kind of step away from my notes for a minute. That's where the education part is important. Because there is the practice of putting the people into Waiau. But some people have some confusion regarding that practice. There's been cases where people kind of making up their own and putting like the character center. into Waiao, which is not the practice on one hand. On the other hand, it's to me a kind of a biohazard. That it shouldn't be practiced. So that's another part of what we try to do is educate people. Okay, right on. Encourage people to practice. Encourage people to access. But kind of there's a right way and a not so right way. That's the side. So we focus a lot of time when people are interested in learning about Waiao. We say, okay, this is the area. This is what the area represents. This is the cultural practice. This is the do's and don'ts. You know, we really don't like to be big brother, but in certain cases, you have. If that makes sense. You getting the longer? How much time I get? I'm a digressor. Sorry. So we can talk about the Waiao and Kanakapo'i a little more detail later. So when I know the presentation is directly related to the Kuleana community. I think it's an initiative like UH Hilo or university system initiative where we're trying to incorporate more community involvement. So a big part of what we do, myself, in addition to our conservation resource management team, is we coordinate group accesses to the mountain. Pretty straightforward. Most of the time it's field work. Malaming aina, we're taking care of our mauna by getting rid of our invasives. Because, like everything else related to the mauna, our native flora and fauna is not as aggressive as the invasives. So we spend a lot of time removing weeds, tons of weeds in every access. Tomorrow we have about 50 Hamana from the university coming up to help us with that. In addition to weeding, of course, we do a lot of reforestation and new planting. And kind of good. Well, we try to also, one of the ultimate goals is to create kind of an outdoor classroom where you learn about Maunakea and being on Maunakea. So, fortunately, working with Kobe folks, we bring our students up, work them in the field, talk story, and then we actually do some self-reflection that's related to their coursework, their classroom work. We work with many different organizations at this point. We have about 24 different groups that came up in the last year. Kind of a rough estimate, but there's about 500 plus participants in the course of the year. It seems like a lot. It's spread out throughout the year. And the goal again is not to, it's not increasing our numbers. It's kind of offering opportunities to people. And once we started opening up opportunities for people to come up on the Mauna, there's been a lot of interest. So that's where the numbers come from. So, as I mentioned earlier, with the education and outreach plan, all these different goals and ideas and things that we should implement. But for myself, I need to break stuff down into in smaller categories in order to stay focused, in order to maintain the quality of the programming. So, kind of broke up the education and outreach program into 3 areas: it's exploration, conservation, and community. And under each category, I don't want to call them categories, but they are, we have a different specific focus under each. I won't go too much into the other ones because they're pretty straightforward, but what we've been experiencing on our Mauna is, I don't know, it's the new term now, you can hear them on the news, over tourism. We're dealing with that here in Hawaii. I was in Glacier, Montana, kind of doing some research there last year or earlier this year, and they're experiencing that same situations there. So over tourism, in a nutshell, is too much people accessing an area all at the same time. It's not so good on the environment. If you look at Haiana on Koi, we're dealing with that right now. So one of the things we try to look at, again, taking one step back, when you're looking at Mauna Kea, that small area, those of you that have been up there by the visitor center and by Kalepe Ahunua, we, on any given day, between 300 and 400 people that come up for sunrise or sunset. Throughout the course of the year, you have about 200,000 plus people that access our Mauna. So in order to try, and which is not bad, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we're trying to figure out ways to make it a more guided experience instead of people just showing up doing their own thing. So what we're going to try to implement in the next year is offer guided tours, mini-level workshops, of course, community service projects and volunteer opportunities. So that is in development, but we're trying to figure out ways instead of people showing up just kind of randomly showing up to something. Guided tour here, and talk story session there. So that's kind of what we're looking at on the exploration. We're running low on time, but so we kind of, I had to break it up into different sections just so we know what the priorities were and the types of programming was going to be. So we'll move on from this, okay? And one of the major things that we do archaeological site monitoring on our Mauna. Some is 1 year, some is like every 3 years. There's about 263 archaeological sites on our Mauna, which ranges from ahu to burials to trail markers to shelters and all of that. And so as part of CMS, we kind of just we go with the State Historic Preservation Division, they're archaeologists, and we follow them out into the field. And when Taylor does the VECU and insect monitoring, and archaeologists do their studies and their documenting of the different sites. So this is kind of all of those triangles there represent all of the different sites on the Mauna. Just to kind of give you guys an idea of how much archaeological sites exist on the Mauna. But this pool here, down, this pool Makanaka, and that one actually has the highest concentration, if I'm correct, of burials on Maunakea. And that's kind of on the eastern rift of the Mauna, facing Hilo. And in Hilo Bay, you kind of see the people there. Well, why I'm bringing that one up was, in addition to monitoring the sites, if you find anything like the burials are disturbed, the bones are exposed, there's a burial treatment plan that we gotta follow in order to take care of these bones. And it's a necessary thing we gotta do. So sometimes the bones fall out. Gotta go there in the ceremony and actually put the bones back. So doesn't happen often, but that's part of our Kuleana. And that is kind of gives you another idea of the amount of work that people did in Kilohana. That mound there is a lot of the chips and stuff, just in one of the workshops. So, how are you doing, Kobe? All right, 5 minutes, okay. We'll get you this really quickly. All right. So, one of the things to say. So another part is our community outreach. So we attend different community events, share information, talk story about what we do at CMS. I always recruit these guys to come help me table and share info. In addition to sharing info, this is where we do all of our networking and stuff. Yeah? And on the last one, the joint Mauna projects is important because we do projects with DLNR as far as these guys did bird monitoring. Sometimes we do outplanting or hina and other native species. So that's where the partnering is super important. And I needed to include this because this kind of led to where we are now. Yeah. So how is the university addressing the needs that came up and the concerns that came up during the time of the protest of 2015? And so when I started looking at the different outreach objectives, one of the important things for me was to kind of look at, only at my small level, my low scale, my pay grade, but the small kind of stuff that we can do to address some of the concerns. So a lot of programming that we implement does include incorporating our community, our language, our culture and stuff into the program. So like right now, whenever we go into the field, we do our protocols. We're going to carry ourselves in ceremony. We have our visitor center staff there. They're practicing their levels, so make sure they're talking about our place names on the Mauna, if they're pronouncing it correctly. So when they're sharing our Molelo, it's accurate Molelo. And we try to, what I really try to encourage is all of our staff to kind of, make it a norm to do on Oli, or do on Pule every day, no matter if they're by themselves or they're hosting a group. And go all into the bottoms, just supporting the access rights, we don't like big brother anybody. That's not the purpose. We're trying to support access to our Mauna, especially by our people, our community. And here's another one. Oh, the second bullet, include how Native Hawaiians in the decision-making processes. So right now we're dealing with, as I mentioned earlier, I don't like call it over tourism like it's a bad thing, but people going up to Mauna, they get access to the mountain, and they've been going to one of the sites, one of the Ahu Vekyu. And as a university, we kind of say, oh, you guys cannot go. So we're working with one of our Native Hawaiian groups, the ones that actually built the Ahu and Vekyu, to help us determine what is appropriate access to Vekyu and what is the appropriate protocols associated with the Ahu and Vekyu. So instead of us guys making up the decision or thinking we know how to better determine access, we're actually working with the people, the practitioners that use the circuit. That makes sense. Yeah, I think that's my last slide. So, as part of this presentation, working with Kobe folks, I think we have a breakout session which you can better explain.
Why don't we give
Yes.
Kaleo a round of applause?